Welcome back. Time to cover our first real vulnerability. Even though HTML injection is considered a bug, command injection is much more serious. So, what is command injection? Well, we can define it like this. Command injection is a web vulnerability that allows an attacker to execute operating system commands on the server that is running the application. Typically, once it's discovered, it allows the attacker to fully compromise the application and all of its data. Sometimes, command injection can be used to compromise other parts of the host's infrastructure, and it can be used to pivot the attack to other systems within the organization. So yes, it can be really serious vulnerability. It allows us to execute system commands on the server, which could also mean that we can see the files, check out the passwords folder, delete files, and perhaps even set a reverse shell connection. But how exactly do we do that? And when can we find this bug? Let's check out an example in theory. Say we have a simple web application that lets people read different stories. It gives you a list of stories that it has available, and you type in which one you want to read. Let's say that those stories are stored in txt files on the server. Once a client types in the name of the story that they want to read, the server processes the content of that story's txt file and outputs it back to the web page. Now, this is a very simple example, but it will give us a good understanding on what exactly is command injection. And what we saw right here was a normal usage of this web application. But the problem can occur if the website processes the content of the story itself through its system without the user input being filtered as to what characters and what commands can it receive. Let me explain this a little bit better. For example, let's say this application reads the content of the txt file with the help of the cat command. We type in the story name and it cats the story, reads the output and throws it back to the web application for us to read. All of this is good, but what happens if we enter this, for example? story1.txt, semicolon, who am I? And here is where our terminal commands knowledge comes in play. What we did right here is we simply typed the story that we want to read, then we used semicolon to add another command that the server should execute, which in our example is who am I? And by the way, semicolon can be used to separate multiple commands. It's just one of the ways that you can separate multiple commands and execute them one by one. So now the command that the server would process would no longer be just cat story1.txt, but it would look something like this. Cat story1.txt, and then after it executes that, it would execute who am I. And if the website is vulnerable to command injection and it doesn't filter our input, we would get an output like this. It would output a story, and at the end we should also see the response of the who am I command, which can be root or the account name that executed the command. So in general, the process looks something like this. We find a user input that could potentially get processed by the system. We add normal input and concat additional command to it, and if the input isn't filtered, it will process both of those commands and it will give us both of these results. Awesome. Now let's see how that looks like in practice.